Hello, everyone. Good evening for those of you who are more on the east side, and I guess kind of good early evening for those of you on the west side. I'm going to give people a few moments to tune in, and I'm just going to tweet this out as well. I think we both got notified that we are tweet. Perfect. All right. Doing all the housekeeping.
Doing all the things.
So, good evening. Welcome. If you're tuning in for the first time, this is the La Maison de Rouge Monday night weekly live broadcast. I am your host, Lucy Sweetkill, one half of the duo that is La Maison de Rouge. A little bit about who we are. LMDR is dedicated to expanding the BDSM experience by discussing, educating, and informing our audiences about the intersections of kink, wellness, sexuality, spirituality, and social activism. We aim to create a safe space for discussing these topics, as well as providing an avenue for our guests to share their stories and experiences. So thank you again for joining us. Tonight, our guest is Los Angeles-based artist and cultural producer who was born in South Korea and adopted by a Japanese-American family. Her love for poetry and photography slowly progressed into a conceptual performance practice. Physical and psychic boundaries, sexuality, and permanence are also reoccurring themes. She is the co-producer of Sacred Wounds with Wang Newton, an online show focused around ritual, subverting cultural stereotypes, and ancestral healing for stereotyping for Asian performers. She's also known as the Erotic Conceptualist. We're definitely going to get into that, where she expresses racial stereotyping, emotional, physical, and societal confines, often in dark humor. Coupling her experience with recalibrating her own sexuality, the work is created to facilitate meaningful dialogue around our need for connection and belonging. Please welcome, pronoun she, her, Kayla Tange, aka Coco Ono. Thank you for joining us, Coco.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well,
really cool.
We are so happy to have you on the show. Obviously we've kind of cross-pollinated a few times. And being part, Dee and I, and being part of Sacred Wounds, which we always enjoy doing, and just it's an amazing, amazing show that's super healing, I think, for a lot of the performers and for people who are watching. So thank you again for being on. And I just, I guess we'll kind of start right in, which we ask a lot of our new, anyone we've interviewed for the first time, which is, what is your origin story of how did you get to be the performer you are, the artist you are at this very moment? Because especially coming from an Asian household, I assume that wasn't maybe an easy path.
First of all, thank you for trusting, Wang and I's vision with Sacred Wounds and just coming along. And we, without a lot of backstory, just, it was so cool to just, have you and Dia on the show. Just always really appreciate both of your performances. This journey has been really, definitely interesting as a Asian, person of Asian descent, and with, we all know the stereotypes of, trying to please our family and, hoping that we won't do anything to shame them. But I think for me, it's a little late by now. I think I think I passed that point a long time ago, and maybe it's coming around to not proud, because I feel like that's not ever a word that's used ever. it's so not used to the point that it's like become a joke.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, my family is really accepting of what I do, because at first it was like, okay, well, I guess this is the longest job you've ever had, being dancing at clubs, to working in a dungeon, to in which my dad was accidentally following my Twitter account. Yeah. But that's another story. But yeah, I think at this point it's like, they're like, okay, you've been performing for 16 years now. I think you're pretty dedicated. So at this point, like, you're obviously 100% dedicated and 100% in. So like, we kind of have to support what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think like my sister's always been really supportive, but I think maybe the rest of my family is beginning to see this very, very long journey is becoming clearer, because it's really hard to explain, hey, I want to move to LA and do this thing that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But this is like, I have this calling, I have to do this, kind of work. And I think meeting, other people like you and Dia and Wang and just like all the performers we've been able to have on Sacred Wounds, it's like, to come to this intersection of healing and sex work and activism, it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of blown my mind, to be honest. It's like, when you start seeing all these things come together, you're like, okay, this is why I've been doing this tirelessly for this many years. It's really worth it.
Totally.
So yeah, the journey was very long, and it really started with, stripping when I was 22. And then it just kind of progressed. I think I just started to try other avenues, and then in 2015, I started kind of transforming a lot of my experiences doing different types of sex work. I started to compile a lot of the stories. I made a couple of zines, and then I started to do these kind of like confession booth performances that, like, blurred the lines of sex work and performance art, because for me, I never really saw a difference. I just thought everything is a performance, whether it's like theater or television or, I mean, it's all, to me, it was all a performance. So what is the difference? It just is depending on if it's in an art gallery or if it's in a strip club or if it's at a dungeon.
Yeah.
What difference does it make? We're really trying to have connections with people.
Yeah. And also the fact that even on both sides, people will use stage names of some kind, like clients use a fake name a lot of time too. And it's like a character sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Or even if you find out later that, actors change their names, or it's like you're putting on this persona for whatever reason it is, so yeah, I don't know. I think that was a very long, drawn out story of the origin story.
No, I definitely want to ask more about your origin, because I think this is something that's very interesting to people, because like, none of us expected to be a sex worker. We didn't come out of the womb, right? But there are things that at a certain point, when you've been doing this so long, you're like listening to a lot of times this inner voice, right? Like you were saying, there was this calling, and then you turn back and you're like, wow, all these little things now make sense, especially in your youth. So were you a dancer and kind of a performer when you were a child? Like, did you see yourself kind of like being really artsy? and was that like acceptable too for you in your family?
Yeah, I was in dance as a child. I actually was having this funny conversation with my dad the last time I saw him. I was giving him a haircut, and I said, "Why did you and Mom have me in literally every extracurricular, activity?" I said, "I think you had my sister and I in too many things." And he's like, "Well, basically, like, unless you're a prodigy, like, you need to be well-rounded." And so I said, does that mean I was mediocre at everything in your eyes? No response. I just thought it was a really funny conversation. But he said, "Well, it's really important that you're well-rounded. I'm sure you heard this growing up. You have to play an instrument. You have to be in a sport. You have to take dance lessons. You have to be in Girl Scouts." And so, yeah, I was always, in some sort of like performative activity. My adoptive mother was an art teacher. So I think I was always like drawn to like, making things and dancing. I guess I didn't ever think it was possible to actually have a career, let alone, like this alter ego that is somehow getting hired. Like never my wildest dreams. And it really started when I was 14, like after my mom passed away. I started to create these worlds where I would dress my friends up and take photos of them. Like I still have albums of like Polaroids of like high school friends. And I don't even know how I had access to all these things, but like I somehow had costumes. I look back on old photos and I would like put wigs on my friends and stuff. And yeah, so it was like, now that I look back, I'm like, wow, I feel like I was always like constructing these like fantasy worlds to escape. And this is before I had like even heard of any, artists like Cindy Sherman working in kind of like identity. And so I guess I think intuitively gravitated towards like escapism in a way. But now, and I grew up in a small town. So I realize now I'm looking back, I'm like, wow, my friends and I would always create all these really funny stories and do photo shoots and like perform in like alleyways just for fun. We would literally have shows for each other. And so, now I'm like, wow, okay, literally all this makes sense. And I think maybe, like teenage me would be impressed that like I would have never known that I could have actually made a career out of this.
I mean, that's the thing though, right? When you're a kid, you don't really know what's possible because you're just kind of fed these very like basic stuff. But I think that's the beauty of like today's kids, right? They have so much access to like art and creativity, and they can see that people can make a living off of it, and they can kind of follow that like instinctual thing that you were already doing, when you were 14.
I mean, not to age myself, I guess, but it's like, obviously I didn't even have a cell phone. So there was the only reason why I even had access to things was going to the local record shop or my friends and I would drive to LA.
Yeah.
And we would go to Amoeba or San Francisco, and we would buy out all these like, magazines. And then, you just have to special order some magazines or whatever. And then you'd be like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, it's kind of amazing, to just, to have just the access now and really see what's possible.
So what was happening between, kind of that like time of like obviously 14, performing, obviously doing school stuff like that. But then that transition to like adulthood and then making a choice to strip. What was happening during that time?
Well, I grew up in Central California, and even though it doesn't seem like it's far away, it's kind of a whole different world. It was a pretty small town, and I would joke to my friends and say, well, I want to move to LA. And it was like, well, what do you want to do? It's like, well, I just want to be fabulous. What's my response?
Achieved. Checked off your list. Just checked off. You just did that.
Like sometimes I laugh. I'm like, wow, that was a bold move when you were 16 to even think that. I did, have some icons, obviously, that were major influences on me. Like, when I was in high school, my idols were like Amanda Lepore and Buck Angel. And I was just like, oh my God, I got to actually meet Buck Angel when I was working at Jumbo's. And I was like, oh my God, like, I've been following you since high school. This is so cool. I have not been Amanda Lepore yet, but I was like, see, like, people are doing this.
I've met Amanda a few times.
That's cool. Yeah. It's funny to think, when you're in high school, it's like these like, larger than life like icons, and you're like, how is this possible that people are just like living their truth? And that's a little bit, I guess, basically, fabulous equals living your truth. Yeah, I guess. And then when I first moved to LA, I just graduated high school, and so I was just really shy. Even though I had been doing a lot of like, performances for friends, I still was shy with, groups of people I didn't know. Yeah. And so it took me about 4 years of living here and, working at coffee shops or whatever, jobs. And then finally I was like, okay, I was working retail, and I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to go audition somewhere. And then, I've only planned on working for a few months. And then, like you said, you don't plan on,
and then it goes.
and then it goes. And then you're like, well, I guess this is my life.
So out of all your sex work experience, which ones did you connect with the most and why? Or which one do you resonate with the most?
I really enjoyed aspects of working in strip clubs. I think because I was just kind of able to like move around, and like from a lot of people I've met, like I guess I really just connected to a lot of customers that I, ended up having for some customers for, a decade, and then you kind of become friends. And then, through the friendships, it's like, then, they really are like started to support my art practice and come to my art shows. And then, I don't know, it was just something really organic. About a lot of people I met working in the club. So I think, I think that was, I definitely worked as a dancer for longer than any other type of sex work.
And where does the name Coco Ono come from?
Well, I was going by the name Akira for a really long time, just at various places. And I just kind of wanted to I wanted an identity change, and the name Akira just kind of happened out of nowhere because, I fell into doing sex work. So then I was like, quick, I need a name that sounds Asian. My roommates at the time were these guys that were in anime. So it was one of those things, like, it didn't resonate with me, I just used it. Everywhere I worked, I did use it. And then I toyed with using my real name, working at the dungeon. And then I was like, I need to be further away. From these names. Because I don't know about you, but for me, names, there was something I don't know, something in me changed whenever I would use a different name. And so for some reason, when I started using Coco Ono, was a friend of mine was kind of joking, I think this is a really funny name for you to use. And then I realized Coco Chanel and blending Yoko Ono, the conceptual work, and Coco Chanel kind of was an orphan, like myself, and then basically, built her career off these men were, these men that she was having affairs with were basically helping her build, her empire. And I was like, this is such an amazing story, and so I just ended up kind of really resonating with the merging of those two names. And and then, with a lot of the conceptual work I was doing, I just thought it fit. And then for some reason, when I had started adopting that name, it was just something shifted in my work.
Yeah. I totally can see that. It's actually a transition both Dia and I did when we left the house, which was finding a name that wasn't attached to this place that sort of forced us to have a certain thing, right? And then being our own. And it was that blossoming. And I kept Lucy because I had actually chose that, and then they chose my last name originally. And then for me, Sweetkill is a very, I talk about it. It's all about I've always been someone who's been into comic books and anime, and I like these sort of, villainy, superhero sort of name that is not meant quite noticeable that it's not a a real last name, but
right.
But just very, connected to your personality. And so I think Coco Ono, the story behind it is really great. I think it goes really well together. Just to say,
I love Sweetkill also. It's I think it also is kind of just very visual, those two words together.
But I think that's the thing, is your name has that kind of visuality to it too, with all the roundness,
there's a lot of roundness.
Yeah. But I think that that stuff is important, especially, as an artist. So this term, that's, when I was doing your bio, the term erotic conceptualist, what does that mean to you?
Well, a friend of mine, Luca Fisher, who I collaborate with a lot, came up with these terms. Also, we were kind of joking around about my stripping style is.
I need to hear this. What is your stripping style?
No, just being an erotic conceptualist is stripping as an afterthought almost. The idea is not about being naked at the end. The idea is basically being enveloped in this concept. So taking the audience on an erotic journey, where the end, meaning you see the body, is is not like the finale. The finale doesn't exist. It's what's happening in the moment, and like is there something to take away from this besides, just getting to see like nipples at the end, or, a nude body? I think it was more like, I don't know, just kind of coming up with like, I guess like a bizarre kind of acts or funny acts. It was like my way of doing like really subversive ways of communicating with the audience without being, when I couldn't be direct, say, about political things. Like I would do things in like a satirical kind of way, I guess. I mean, now I think I'm more like just, giving it straight.
Yeah.
I think it was like a way for me to subtly communicate like, anger over like racism and being stereotyped is like to kind of package it in like a kind of conceptual way. But yeah, now I think it's like, well, after everything that's going on, like I'm just going to tell it like it is.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm not sure how it is in the stripping world. And so I find, I want to know what your experience is, especially being Asian, right? That like fine balance of, the being tokenized, fetishized, but also monetizing it, right? Because I know that some strip clubs have like, you can only have like 2 Asian girls and like 1 Black girl, like I've heard that very much, but I don't have experience in that world. And I came from an all Asian dungeon, so that in itself is a whole other thing.
That is definitely, there is definitely the fantasy out there.
Did you feel like even when within this work that has a lot of like freedom in so many ways, I know houses and strip clubs can have obviously these really strict rules. There's obviously, there may be these forms of like, overt and subtle racism that is happening in the strip clubs. How did you feel? Like, what was your experience, and can you speak more about it?
Definitely. Almost every club I've worked at, I was one of the few. Mm-hmm. I think even at the dungeon, I was one of 2, and basically almost some places I was the only one. Yeah. Even places where there was a couple, they would only put max 2 Asian girls.
Yeah.
It would always get mixed up. I would even get mixed up by owners sometimes. And that was really offensive because I'm making you money and like you can't even remember which one, like who I am.
Yeah.
There was the rare nights where there would be 3 of us, and I literally documented that. I would take selfies of us 3 and be like, can you believe this? Like, there's 3 of us tonight. And I kid you not, in all the years I've worked, there's maybe like 4 pictures on my phone that there's like 3 of us. Yeah. So I think I would often get hired because I was Asian.
Yeah.
And I would be told that. So it's like, oh, we need an Asian.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have any. Oh, you'll do. And it's kind of, it just makes you think like, oh, I guess I need a pair of pants. Any will do.
Yeah.
Like I'm hungry. What do you feel like eating? Oh, anything's fine. It's just, you kind of just really feel like a commodity. You're like, okay, well, I guess I filled some
gap
quota. Should I be concerned or should I be like happy that I, am getting shifts? Like, I don't know. It was always this point of confusion for me. And I think, I think, it wasn't until recently when, Wang and I started really like, okay, well, we're going to do our own thing, that I realized like, wow, you kind of, just as an Asian person in like this industry, it's like you kind of feel, in hindsight, I'm like, was I some sort of pawn? Like, oh, and then I would be told at some clubs like, oh, like, I hope you keep your hair long. Or one time I put bangs, like clip-in bangs, and I was told like, oh, you look more Asian with bangs. This is by management too. Yeah. And then so you just start, it's like one of those things, you just kind of repress it because you're like, well, I'm making money, so I guess this is fine to deal with. But then in hindsight, I'm like, none of this was fine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The bang thing, I feel very connected and also triggered by it. Yes. And massively triggered by it at the same time.
Did somebody say that to you?
Oh my God. Like, or photo shoots I've been on where people would like try. So I do not look good in bangs. I just don't. I don't have the face for it. I'm not that Asian, that has.
First of all, I don't believe that, but
I've, and so I was on a photo shoot and they wanted us to look really Asian. And so they like gave me these really horrible bangs. The photo shoot was horrible. And I was just like, I don't even want this going out there. Like, you guys like asked us to be part of this thing. And then you think that we're like interchangeable. It was Dia and I. So enough that you're like going to put bangs because she has bangs. No, we have super different faces. And it just
also, it's like amazing how bangs are synonymous with looking more Asian.
Yes, and it just made me look crazy. I just looked crazy. Like, some people, it doesn't matter what ethnicity, just don't look good in bangs. And it was just a thing. And it's I think in any, like, the funny thing about sex work, right, is like there's obviously certain industries where you cannot say some of this shit at all, right? And you have HR departments and you have some of that. But like that's the sort of underbelly of sex work, right? Is these like management that says, oh, we need one. We need an Asian.
Oh, we've been waiting for.
Yeah. Or like, hey, can you like wear one of those like Chinese dresses so you look more, that would like go really well.
That would be great. Or like one time I was wearing just a normal, like whatever, like a satin robe. It was not a kimono. It was literally a satin robe. And someone was like, oh yeah, you got that like kimono thing going on. And I was like, this is just a robe. There's no extended arms here. And I was like, it doesn't have the collar, like it's not a kimono. And they were like, well, it sure looks like one to me. And I said, is it because I feel like you wouldn't be saying this to someone not Asian.
Yeah, so if you just took it off and put it onto the white girl next to you, they would have said,
they would not get, hey, I like the kimono thing you have going on.
Yeah, and you're just like.
So obviously I would use it to my advantage, but at the same time, sometimes I wonder, how much rage has been repressed over the years of just ignoring things. I don't know if you think that too. Just, wow, like being told something almost every day you go into work is a lot.
Yeah, it is. I definitely like, and you do like just to survive, right? Like, you're like, yes, I'm making money from it, but how much am I putting up with, right, to make this? Because, you know, and it's hard because not all of us, like, I've definitely have had really, you know, mixed, you know, I'm still tackling that kind of journey of like really monetizing the fetishization of Asian people.
Yeah.
For so many years at the dungeon that I was just like you have to like rectify that in yourself, you know, but also be kind to ourselves and understanding that like you didn't have much of an option because you weren't in the place of power to be like, you know, these policies and how you're going about this is not okay, you know, because your ass would be fired and they will choose somebody else.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And you're so right. It's literally the work being done internally is so important just for survival. Yeah, I think back sometimes, I'm like, wow, I really wasn't like kind to myself, you know? And now, you know, I'm like, you know, you did what you did, you know, maybe you were in unfavorable situations lots of times, and that's fine because like you are okay now. You know, and I've really like forgiven myself for like putting up with a lot of things in the past. Like I do not anymore at all.
Yeah. And then I think that's great that you're that forgiving yourself. I think that's the big thing that sometimes you just have to, because you don't have the power, you know, in that situation, in those times, you know. And now that sort of transitions you to sacred wounds. So like, what is this new sort of transition, and what are the things you're working on now that makes you feel so much, you know, you've spoken about how you're just like not putting up with this shit and not dealing with it. What does that look like within your work and your art and what you're doing now, especially with Sacred Wounds too?
I think with Sacred Wounds, it's, you know, it's literally the show that I was hoping for, you know, 10 years ago when I was like, where is this space, you know, that we can be sexual, but we can also, you know, talk about like emotional, like family issues or cultural issues. And then after that, it's like, can we talk about healing and like how challenging it is, you know, to like, you know, like you said, just like rectify that in yourself and what like our ancestors went through, and honoring that and like forgiving them, you know, for being hard on us. You know what I mean? And say, well, you know, they grew up during like a wartime, you know, or they were in internment camps, like they were starving. Like, of course they want us the best for us now. They don't want us to like, they don't want history to repeat itself. So I think, you know, with this space, it's like we're able to, I guess, you know, house all of those things, and just show, you know, like a multifaceted version of ourselves. And I think that's why, like, every time we do it, we change the theme, you know, like this last song was Hot Pot, and it's like, it was very comical and, you know, a lot of silly food acts. And, you know, before it's like been more serious, and it's like, hey, you know, you can be all the things. You can talk about trauma in a comical way,
Yeah.
you know, while still like holding space, you know, for challenging conversations.
Yeah. How do you two kind of come up with like what you guys want to do? And is that like where your main focus is now?
Wang is actually gets messages. We actually talk, but downloads. Actually, downloads is Wang's word. and it's like, oh, okay, download, like this is going to be, you know, the first one was erotic ritual, and I think I came up with that one, but then all the other ones except hot pot wings, basically like this needs to be the topic. And you know, they're all really good downloads, I have to say. So yeah, that's it's a big part of my focus right now. I'm actually finishing my art degree, so I've been kind of working a lot of this into like my art practice right now. So we are actually trying to transition sacred wounds. Hopefully, like we've tried, you know, we've applied for some grants that we didn't get, but I think we're trying to like transition into somewhere, blurring the lines between an online show, you know, maybe in an art space one day. Yeah.
Well,
so yeah, it's a pretty big part of our focus right now.
Where did you all do hot pot? Because the one before initiation was at a dungeon.
Oh, it was. Yes, it was. It was at Mistress Justine Cross's LA Dungeon East, and that was fun. That was Wang's birthday party. Yeah, we did it at my place.
Got it.
Time. Yeah, we try to do a little different background and, you know, change it up.
I mean, I love it. I love the themes and like the, you know, the sexy and serious, the intense, and as well as just like the hilarious and playful and ridiculous, because I think that's what makes it fun, right? And the combination of all of it.
Yeah. It's been really fun. We've been able to just gather with a lot of amazing people and just have conversations that are, you know, Midori's been really amazing to be a part of it, and it's like even some of like the after party conversations are just it's just really wild. Like if someone told me when I was in high school like that this is what, you know, these are the kind of conversations that would be happening, like these are the kind of communities that would be coming together, I wouldn't have even believed it.
You guys should do merch. That's what I think.
We've been talking about that. I mean, you know how it is. It's literally like it's a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
You know how it is. Just
putting it all together, and it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, just with like the organizing, you know, the posting, the social media, the like, it's a lot.
Yeah, but it would be awesome.
We should do merch.
Actually, you know what merch you guys should do? You guys should do like if you can do the red envelopes, like, you know how you can buy them for New Year's, but just have your guys' logo on it, and people can buy sets of 10 or 20, not that much, and that's how you give out money.
Okay, that's a really cute idea. That would be really cool, but do them really nice, like foil.
Yeah. I mean, because I've seen, you know, you see so many of the red envelopes around, and obviously people are making them, you know, so I wonder if you can kind of find someone who makes them. It can't be that hard, right? It can't be that difficult, and then just have like the logo and like a little, and then because I said so. That's for me, I always think about. I love thinking about merch for other people because I just like it goes through my mind, and being totally Asian, I was like, how do I make money off of this? But like, I love practical. Like, I tend to buy cool merch that's practical. Like
Me too.
something I will use, but is also a little funky and weird.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like stuff like that. Like, oh, well, I'm going to give out money soon, so I might as well like have a cool logo on this thing. And
right.
like, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So I just think about like random things I use and like how like, oh, this would actually be cool if it was like merch, right? And
well, you know what? If you ever just on a whim get any wild ideas about merch, you know where to find us. We definitely need to do that, because I'm the same way. I'm like, oh, I buy everyone's merch. Oh, do you have t-shirt? I love buying t-shirts.
Yeah, like if they're super comfortable. The other thing is I like socks. So
Sacred Wound socks.
Yeah, but you just would have funny like designs or whatever. Or, like, yeah, I like socks, and I tend to give socks to, like all the Asian socks that have like animals on them.
When I went to Korea, I bought 100 pairs of socks, and I had to buy an extra suitcase just to bring like all the socks that I brought back. And then I had this trash bag. And like anytime I'd be like, do you want some socks from Korea?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like socks, I end up like, I have random ass socks of all kinds, like I have a bunch of like, I have the little Korean socks that have the little fingers that do the heart thing.
The ones that you put together and it's a face or something.
Yeah, the ones I have those, like all, like those are just cute gifts, not expensive, and sock merch. Asian people love socks.
That is true.
You wear them in the house, like house slippers would also be
okay.
good.
House slip those. Okay, those ones that have the duster on the bottom. Or that would be perfect.
Visors. I feel you straight up need. I only wear visors. I got a lot of hair. Regular hats are too warm for me. I
can't wear regular hats either.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I have a ponytail, and I'm not taking out my bun for a baseball hat. Sorry.
Visors are the way to go.
Okay, visors, socks.
Totally rock an awesome Sacred Wounds visor. I love visors. I got many of them, and I've gifted many of them to people, and they're like, visors, these are amazing. I'm like, straight up, that's why old Asian people wear these.
That's why we've been wearing them for so many years. My sister and I, even face masks. Yeah. My sister and I we had a picture of us from like 15 years ago. We were at the airport wearing a face mask. Yeah. It was like, people, have been wearing face masks for, decades now. Yeah, for so long. So long. I do want to open it up to any questions from our audience. So if there are any questions, feel free to write them in and I will pop them on the screen. But I do want to make note of below here. Let me go this way. That's been scrolling. I'm always like, where is the camera? So Coco Ono's all websites, Instagram, Twitter, and OnlyFans are scrolling below. So please follow, reach out in the appropriate manners. Oh, question. See, people are like already, they're like, oh, sock merch, heart, ready for visors. I'm telling you. Remember, people, we're the ones who kept here. So if you try to put anything out, we're going to reference this video. Right? We have a question of, do you have any books, readings, articles, or movies around art or BDSM that really resonated with you? Books. I would say...
Or even in general, just like resonate with you as an artist?
I was going to say the 2 books that I've read lately are not really around art or BDSM, but they are by Asian authors that really, really knocked my socks off, speaking of. And I can put them in the chat. One is Kathy Park Hong, Minor Feelings. That book, it's just, yeah, it kind of really changed my whole world. And this other graphic novel, especially if you like comics, Lucy might appreciate this. I need to get the author's exact name, but it's called Grass. And it's a graphic novel about Korean comfort women.
Ooh.
It is like, I mean, just beautifully illustrated and really talks about like this really, really complex history.
Yeah.
And I never in a million years would have thought to, I guess, communicate that history in a form of a graphic novel, but it just works. And yeah, it's really beautifully done. So
that's really awesome. Yeah, I would love to, I'll look into it and check it out as well. All right. So question, when do the merch socks come?
We are actually taking a little break. Sacred Wounds, but it's not actually a break because we'll probably be working on, sock merch.
Sock merch. I'm telling you, they're gonna sell out.
You're right. It's true. It's true. Yeah. The sock slipper and then the sock slipper combo.
Yeah. Like a true Asian, I do this all the time.
I'm going to tell Wang this needs to happen.
That's
taking pre-orders for socks, everyone.
Yeah. We have another question. Was there any art performance you never were able to do that you ever wanted to do? Or I guess even aspirational art you want to do coming up?
I feel very fortunate, and I'm also incredibly persistent. So I feel like I've actually been able to do most of the performance pieces. Somehow it happened. But I would have to say what I haven't been able to do is do them on a very, very large scale. Because a lot of the work that I pitched or was able to do in a smaller theater, I was told it was too racy for like large public theaters. So that would be one of my dreams is to really, just do it and get get the green light to be able to do some of these things. So one of the pieces was this performance piece I did called Boundaries. And I took boundary, I asked the audience, tell me a way in which your boundaries were crossed. And they, wrote them down, and I incorporated them into the piece, into like the sound piece. And then I had taken various boundary kind of confessions from other performances and put them like to a sound piece. And, it was very much calling out, rape culture and, really trying to, I guess, have conversations around establishing boundaries. And so I really think that this is very important topic. These aren't made up stories. These are real things that happen to people, like really traumatic things. And so I was like trying to, start these conversations and do these performances. And I did take it to, present it to some larger theaters. They were like, this is like too much.
That sucks because
it was sad because I said, do you think I made these things? I'm not trying,
yeah.
I'm not trying to be offensive. These things happen.
Yeah. That's so crazy because I feel like I've seen some like on similar lines with other, certain plays and stuff like that, talking about tragedy and talking about all of this. But when it comes to these like really important types of like tragedy, like why that conversation is not as important to people, it's weird when it starts to come on the line of sex, right?
Right. Oh, it's always that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, let's tone it down.
Yeah.
And I was like, tone down these issues. Like, why are we toning this down? This is happening right now.
Yeah, because people show war and all of this stuff in like its most gruesome, graphic stuff, and that's what wins Oscars and everything like that. But we're not going to talk about these things that happen day to day to like a good half of the population,
right?
And
no, we can't. That's too risque.
Yeah, it's just, and I hope that, I hope for you that you're going to be able to perform it in something bigger. And I think it's definitely going to be possible and continue to be persistent.
Right.
Well, it does lead us to this next question, which I think would be a good one to end on. Being powerful women, what are some of the icons, characters that helped you cultivate the image of powerful women? So, characters and icons that helped you cultivate the image of powerful women for you.
Oh, I mean, I definitely, people like Yoko Ono, Shigeko Kubota, some of these, women who are doing really, really important conceptual work, video art. I have to say thank you. What about you, Lucy?
Oh man, my mother. My mother's like
definitely my mother too.
But icons and characters, female comic book characters, a lot of them have always been super powerful, which I really love. Like, you just have these strong, bold women who have all this power and ability and are always, kicking somebody's ass, and so I think I really resonated with a lot of that. I kind of like felt very powerless as a kid. And so I would get lost into the comic book world and pretend like I would kind of create these fantasy worlds for myself as to escape. And I would pretend I was like some sort of like superhero with some like, with some type of superpower, and I sort of get lost in it. And same thing with like anime, very similar, like Sailor Moon-esque and like all of that. So,
I mean, I would say you definitely succeeded in living out your childhood dream.
I know.
You really, I mean, come on. I look at your photos, I'm like, this is literally everything. You are that character.
I think that's like what has really inspired me in all my work, and funny enough, have made that a reality. Like, I use a goddamn whip a lot of times. Like, come on. I was like,
you are a superhero.
So it is kind of funny because I just like, yeah, that was the world I escaped in. And so I shouldn't be surprised I'm here now, right? But it is, it is funny. I still kind of laugh about it, I'm like, wait, I am wearing those outfits.
You totally are.
I just can't fly. It's okay. Maybe one day. Maybe one day, but that's okay. Well, is there any upcoming projects that you want our audience to know about, or things that are coming, any upcoming projects, any upcoming things that you want people to check out, or, mark down on their calendars?
Wang and I are part of LA Kink Pride, and I'm going to be performing with Cyber's Inferno on June 7th. Other stuff, check out my Instagrams, both of them, because one has, I guess, like kind of gallery art stuff, and the other one is like performance. So both of them I always update with everything going on, especially things are opening now. So I am in a couple, if anyone's in LA, like I'm a part of a couple of shows.
That's awesome.
Going on. One is opening at Wanzimmer June 12th. And then I'm also part of Angels Gate Cultural Center for a show called Sanctuary of the Aftermath. And that's also closing June 12th. And I'm also graduating on June 12th.
Woo!
So if anybody has if anyone's in LA, there's all those things going on. But LA King Pride is online. So Wang and I will be posting about that on our social media. I would say the best way to find out anything that we're doing is check out Instagram, and our Sacred Wounds Instagram. We're always posting on there. So
cool. Awesome. And then for those of you who want to support La Maison de Rouge, please look below. We have our Patreon, which we offer really great membership rewards for those of you who are a patron. I want to thank the ever beautiful Coco Ono for being on our show. I'm so glad to have you. And, I want to thank our audience for joining us, and for those who will be watching this later on as well.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the questions. Those were awesome questions, and it was so good chatting with you.
Of course. So I want to say bye to our audience, and we will see you next Monday.